Obviously, Sheriff Kopis also has a brief comment for the members of the jury.
Have a seat wherever you wish.
I just have a brief statement real quick from the State's Attorney's Office. Will County State's Attorney Jim Glasgow and his trial team would like to thank the jurors for their dedication and hard work throughout the course of this long and complicated trial. We have the utmost respect for the service and their commitment to serving the interests of justice. We also wish to respect the privacy of their deliberations in reaching this important verdict. We wish them all the best luck in their lives. Thank you.
Having said that, I'd like to introduce the foreman of the jury.
Good afternoon.
Can you say your
Can
name
you start
first
by
and
saying,
last
spell
name?
your name for us, first and last name?
It's Eduardo Saldana, Eduardo, last name Saldana. 22.
Eduardo, tell us about the deliberations. Maybe you can just sum up how difficult it was. It was 2 days worth.
Yeah, well, when the deliberations began, we first talked about what the doctors had to say, and we pretty much all agreed that it was a homicide. We did not think that the death was accidental. After that, it was just getting certain things right, which is why we asked for the neo-shori and the lawyer's testimony.
That was key. Hearsay testimony. Talk to us about hearsay. How critical was that in swaying you that Drew Peterson committed this murder?
Extremely critical.
And can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Perhaps one of your colleagues?
Yeah.
I mean, what,
share a
if you
little
could just tell
thoughts?
us why it was so critical to you, what was going through your mind that you weighed so much importance on it? If you could explain
Well,
that for us.
like we said, you know, the hearsay testimony from Stacy, that was to us the biggest part about this.
So it was Neil Shorey, his testimony that helped you make up your minds?
Neo Shori kind of opened things up, but the lawyer's testimony was the one that got us the most.
Harry Smith?
Yes, correct.
What was it that each one said that stayed with you, that helped you decide?
The part where Neo Shori said that she woke up in the middle of the night, you know, didn't see him. The part about that Drew told her what to say to the media, we thought that was important. As far as Harris, the lawyer's name, Harry Smith's name, his testimony about, you know, how he murdered her, and the part about where he said concealment of a homicide, that was crucial as well.
So would it be fair to say that if the hearsay evidence wasn't there, that he would have been acquitted?
Possibly.
If you had not heard from Harry Smith, was Neil Shorey's testimony alone enough to convince you?
We needed both.
Yeah, we needed both.
Can you talk about the breakdown?
Please come up and introduce yourself. Spell your name if you would.
Sure. Teresa Matthews, Teresa Matthews, Mathews.
And so your name back there?
Jeremy Massey,
Spell that for us.
Jeremy Massey.
And would
Can you
like
talk
to
about
come
the
up,
breakdown of the, when did you first take a vote, and what the votes were, how it broke down, and also talk a little bit about, was there a last holdout, and what convinced that person, and who was it?
We took a vote right away, and right away it was 7 guilty, 4 not guilty, and 1 open. And then there was 1 holdout, because by the end of the first day of deliberation, it was 11 and 1.
Were all of you guilty right from the beginning?
I was guilty.
I was more towards defense. That's why, you know, we asked to clarify things up with the Neil Shorey testimony and the Harry Smith testimony.
Eduardo, the defense put Mr. Smith on the stand, and they wanted to make Stacy dirty her up, make her look kind of bad, that she was an extortionist, is what they would tell us after that testimony. You did not see that? Tell us, I mean, clearly what he said about what Stacy said was more important?
Well, when the lawyer said that, you know, it was concealment of a homicide, you know, then I knew then that, you know, he was telling the truth about that.
So you didn't think that Stacy was not her statements maybe she was lying or anything like that? You
No,
never
we
thought-
believe the statements.
What did you know about Stacy? Because no one asked you during jury selection what you knew about Stacy. Did you know she was missing? I mean, what did you know?
I mean, we were aware, but it's not something that we could use.
But you knew she was missing.
Yeah, but like I said.
But we did not use that when we
didn't-
deliberated.
No, we did not use that. It wasn't off towards the evidence. We can't use that.
We can
When you
only-
made the decision early on that it was a homicide, what made you believe that?
We judged that based on the evidence that was presented to
Wait,
us.
Jeremy,
Hey,
can
Jerry,
you
step
come
up
to the microphone
so
if
we
you
can-
don't
that way
mind?
we can hear you clearly, thank you.
We just, judged that based on the evidence that was presented to us in the case.
Well, how do you think you got her into the bathroom and drowned her?
We were pretty not sure to how that exactly happened.
We have a couple of different theories of how it could have happened.
Can you tell us?
We possibly, she was grabbed from behind and possibly stuck her head under the bathroom sink, and that's where she got her big gash in the back of her head.
What about the clavicle? Do you think maybe she was held down or?
Clavicle on the bathroom sink. Otherwise, the other theory could possibly be where she was drowned in the toilet. She possibly broke both of her clavicles over the toilet.
You guys really, I mean, you had discussions about all of this. You know, how did he get here? How could he have done this? What could have happened? Did you go through sort of scenarios in your heads?
Yes, we reviewed the testimony to see when Stacy couldn't find him, and then he showed up by the washing machine with the women's clothing and told her he had to interview, she was going to be interviewed by the police, then that was a key factor there.
They kind of told us,
Put him in
specific time
place.
frame of.
Exactly when everything happened.
Tell us about the hitman. Did you believe the hitman's testimony, Jeffrey Packard? And did that factor in to your considerations?
He had nothing to gain from it. We believed he was a credible witness. He had nothing to gain by coming to court and be dirtied by all that.
What about the numerous witnesses who testified to Kathy Savio telling them that Drew made threats that he could kill her and make it look like an accident? That's the other hearsay you heard. What did you make of that?
Well, one of the things we saw is that one of the first things Drew Peterson said when he went up the stairs from the testimony we heard was that, they're going to think I did it. When we heard that kind of confirmed the threats that he made towards Kathleen.
And what about Kathleen's sister who testified to seeing him in the bathroom cleaning the bathtub the following day? Did that factor in? Did that surprise you? Did that make you go, wow, what was he doing?
That is unusual. They did say that sometimes murderers clean up after an accident. It just seemed unusual that he would do that.
When the defense put on their expert witnesses and said she could have slipped and fallen, did any of you think that could have been possible? Did you kind of go through your head and say, well, okay, if I were falling in the bathtub, this is what I would do? I mean, what kind of stuck out in your mind about that?
There was too many bruises on too many parts of the body.
And it was no possible way that she could have failed.
Yeah,
Some of the defense attorneys are saying that they feel you guys kind of just brushed over the medical testimony, and that's why you were able to reach that it was a homicide so quickly. What is your take on that? Do you think you gave the medical testimony, a fair look or a good look, or?
I believe we did. I believe, like Mary Case, that was like a very credible witness. She had a lot to say, and she was very creditworthy.
What about Dr. DeMaio? He was obviously the key defense expert, but he was the one who said slip and fall, and how did you weigh his testimony, or did you just discard it?
Like I said, we looked at all the doctors of what they had to say, and we all agreed that it was a homicide from our perspective. All of us agreed. One of the things we heard was, part of her hair, that it will wipe away the blood. We saw that as if blood is going to be wiped away, you would see streaks. That's what we saw.
Can you talk about the atmosphere in the jury room? I mean, were there times when it was heated, where there was intense disagreement among you?
We had discussions. It never got to the point where it was heated.
You asked a question. You wanted to define the word unanimous. That question left some people scratching their heads. Why did you ask that?
It's just something, you know, we wanted to clear up as jurors, make sure we had everything right. That's it.
Was it because there was one holdout? Was it gonna help you maybe with that one holdout, or?
Like I said, it was just to clear things up.
What was the sense of pressure you felt, if any, in coming up with this verdict? Did you have a sense of the scrutiny that would be made of your decision because of the high-profile case that you were having to decide?
No, this was our decision.
Can you talk about the clothes? Why you were wearing colored coordinated clothes? Was there a message you were sending? That was another thing that had people scratching their heads.
No, there was no message. Just one day I said, hey, do you want to wear blue tomorrow? And we did spend a lot of time in the jury room, and we all got along very well. And then from there, like I said, we probably spent more time in the jury room than the courtroom. Then we'd say, hey, what do you want to wear tomorrow? And then it just grew from there. And the judge allowed us to wear the sports shirts. You know, we got that cleared up in that.
Did you ask first before you went to this color scheme?
No, we just did that on our own originally, but we had our bailiff's approval.
But you were the ringleader of the clothing coordination to begin with?
If you want to call it that.
You said you got the judge's approval before you all wore the sports jerseys?
Yes, we did.
Did he tell you not to wear the Cubs?
No, but we knew of his preference.
What gave you the idea?
Can you repeat the question?
What gave you the idea to just say, hey, let's coordinate? What spurred your thought on it?
We were bored.
We did see the matching socks a lot from the defense. And
What was your impression of Drew Peterson from seeing him in court?
He was just this real serious guy, you know. That's pretty much all I got out of him.
What about the defense attorneys? What was your impression of them and maybe also the prosecution?
Well, we all thought they were, you know, they were good jurors. And
no, they were good lawyers.
Good lawyers, sorry. We all thought they were good lawyers. You know, they had their tactics. You know, it's for them, that's their issue. You know,
some were better than others.
Were you annoyed when you kept having to leave the courtroom? Because it really was a little unusual. It doesn't happen in most cases as much as in yours. No?
We weren't annoyed. I mean, like, sometimes you might have thought so, but it didn't, you know, we just thought it would progress faster, but everything was fine.
Eduardo, you are the youngest member of the jury. How did you get selected to be the foreperson?
I volunteered.
He's going to be a communication major in college.
Yeah, I volunteered.
What did you think of Drew Peterson's son?
Thomas?
Yes.
He seemed like a smart guy.
And were you affected by his testimony when he said he never believed his father did this?
No, not really.
You talked a little bit about the tactics of the attorneys. One of the things that struck many of us strange is the use of the Cheshire Cat picture referring to Harry Smith in the end of closing. What was your reaction to that?
That was very demeaning to us jurors. That was really not necessary.
We felt you could have left the picture of the cat out, you know.
Yeah, you made other references, you know, like Castaway, I believe you made a reference to that, you know.
You have a little bit
So
of
it didn't
bathing
stick
hair.
with
Do you have a bathing ritual that your everyday life, did that play any part in your verdict?
No, like with the clip or no clip? No.
When we asked you about the evidence that swayed you to homicide, and you talked about bruises, and what about the position of her body in the tub? Did that factor into your decision?
Her position in the tub indicated that it wasn't necessarily
Jeremy, can you come?
wasn't necessarily a fall. That's what helped key in the factor of us judging that it was a homicide or not an accident.
Was it the toes, or what was
The
it?
way the feet were positioned, yes.
That was the key.
Yeah, and the simple fact that they were saying that she fell backwards, hitting her head, but she was laying down face first.
And there was only one bottle and one duck that was disturbed for the whole bathtub area.
I was going to say, that the fact that there was nothing disturbed behind you, did that hit you immediately as she couldn't have fallen?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
And what about the whole concept, one of the experts had talked about, if she had been in a cup full of water and it was bleeding, it would come across her face, it never would have streaked and dried the way it did if she'd have been in water. Was that something that also factored into your...
Yeah, that's one of the points we brought up. We brought up another point where if her hair was full of water, you know, based on the position of her head, the blood would disperse if there was water in there.
So there would be blood like around the tub? Was that, because the tub was completely clean, was that an indication to you?
Yes.
Eduardo, during the trial, you sent a note to the judge saying that you knew Nick Ponarelli. Can you tell us how you knew him and how that factored in?
Sure. We went to middle school together. We were on a bus together. After we graduated in high school, I don't remember a single time where we talked. I don't remember, and yeah, that's how I knew him.
What about the lack of any physical evidence? I understand that you initially voted not guilty. I mean, was that one of the reasons you wanted physical evidence? How important role
It's something that some of us looked at. But like I said, once we heard the testimony about Stacy Peterson, Drew telling him, this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to say. That kind of gave us an idea that this happened at that time frame.
And what about the state police? Did you get the impression that they messed up the investigation? Tell us about that.
Maybe we can hear from the young lady on the end, if you
Yeah.
would care to join us in front of. We haven't heard from you yet.
Oh, okay. My name is Patricia Tumke.
Can you come up? Can you move in front of the mics and spell your last name for us, if you would?
Timke.
Please, in the middle. Can you come to the middle?
Okay.
Sorry.
Timke.
So what did you think about the state police and the investigation?
Well, the state police should have never allowed Stacy to be interviewed along with Drew being present. That was a big no-no. I mean, it's not normal. That's why it wasn't in any of the reports either. So they shouldn't have allowed her to be interviewed with Drew present.
But do you think that because there was no physical evidence, because they didn't gather it, because they just considered it an accident, did that play a part?
Yes.
We felt that that any death should be investigated thoroughly. That they should take their time. From the testimony we heard, it was maybe 10-20 minutes that he was at the scene, and then he left. And after he took pictures, we thought that was really wrong.
Patricia, you seem quiet and you also seem a little emotional. How has this affected you? You're quiet and you also seem a little
Well,
emotional.
thank you. You're the first person in my life who's ever said that.
How has this personally affected you?
It really hasn't. It really hasn't. I mean, when I was an alternate, I was the first alternate juror, and
she made sure we were there every day.
Yes, I did. I says, you will show up. You will be well. There's no sickness allowed. No family emergencies. Just get yourselves here. But I went through the whole process except a deliberation with them.
Are you disappointed or relieved that you weren't in for deliberations?
Well, that is a heavy, heavy decision for anyone to make. You don't take it lightly. I don't think anybody took the decision lightly. I mean, you're dealing with a man and his life.
Can you each answer that question that Patricia did, how this has affected you emotionally?
It's kind of too soon. Well, actually, right as we were leaving here, I mean, there was a lot of press, there was helicopters, there was people at my house before I even got home, and people calling my phone and that. So that's why we thought it was better just to talk to everybody at once.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. Throughout the entire process, it hasn't been easy.
Do you guys have a feeling now about Stacy Peterson and how she's missing, considering you found Drew guilty? I mean, your personal opinion.
Well, hopefully they'll look into that further for that family.
Can you go back to the vote? You said early on you decided it was a homicide, and then you had to decide if Drew Peterson did it. When you decided it was a homicide, was that all 12 of you agreed?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we all agreed on that.
Those who were holding out just weren't sure there was enough
He had
to
trouble.
say Drew did it.
He had trouble with the hearsay evidence, and then taking that into account, knowing that it's a law that
In what argument did you make to them?
How did you receive the cross-examination of Neil Shorey by Mr. Lopez? And did you sense that when Mr. Brodsky was examining Harry Smith, that was a mistake, or that they intended to bring that testimony out? Did you feel like it was a mistake, or did you get any sense that maybe something was going horribly wrong for the defense at that point?
I'll speak on the lawyer part. Well, yes, he asked for him to be an adverse witness, or a, what was the word?
Hostile.
Yeah, the hostile witness. So they realized that right away that that might not have been a good idea, and they had called him as a witness for the defense.
You were just about to say
And then
something,
as far
I think,
as
about
Shorey-
about the law.
Sorry, as far as Shorey and, talking about Starbucks, the church of the moment, and intimating that he was having an affair or something like that. Stacey, how did that strike you?
Everybody has their own method on how they want to talk to somebody.
Come back to the microphone.
Everybody has a method on how they want to talk to somebody, whether it's in an office, in public. Everybody has their own method. We saw nothing into that.
And also then for the state, you were out of the courtroom when many of the arguments about legal issues took place. Did you get a sense that when there were admonishments about the state not being seeking to win at all costs, I think you remember that admonishment. Did you get a sense that maybe the state had made a mistake or had done something in error, and did you wonder what was your reaction to those admonishments from the judge?
Well, he always told us not to worry about that, and we would like to hear what was being said, but we just couldn't take that into account.
Teresa, can you just, I think you were just about to answer, you were starting to talk about the law, about the hearsay law, I think.
Well, it was
passed
the
by
law that they said, the Drew law.
Right, and
Right.
can you just, you were talking about the holdout and that he might have had some concerns, some unease about that law. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, that's why, like we continued on to the second day, and then we reviewed all the testimony. He reviewed all his testimony, and we talked about it all, and then he felt comfortable to find him guilty.
Did you all struggle with the hearsay evidence that was allowed in other words, people not being able to be cross-examined, both Stacy and Kathy, all this hearsay coming in through other people. Did it trouble you at all that this kind of evidence was allowed in a court, even though it is the law? No problem with that?
No.
One final question, did you say?
When you thought about Drew in court,
Did you know
looking at
those
him,
guys
his
trial?
reaction to your verdict, did you have anything, how you thought his demeanor was this entire trial?
I personally believe everybody was we were all focused on Judge Vermilla, and then we just heard the family as they gasped, when the verdict was read.
Are you going to the sentencing?
No.
Did
Can
you
you
guys
just
know that it
confirm,
was close
Teresa,
to a
Jeremy,
mistrial?
and Eduardo, that you guys are all regular jurors?
Yes, we
And
are.
you're the alternate? Just
Correct.
Thank you.
Patricia, would you have voted to convict or acquit if you were in the
I would have done
deliberations?
the same as those people.
You would have convicted.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate that.
Thank you,
Please,
Ken.
please respect the privacy.